Takumi has always been one of the most popular characters in Fire Emblem. He's never dropped below the top 50 in the popularity polls, being particularly popular with the ladies. But when it comes to rating his effectiveness in gameplay, he gets consistently overrated, especially in his game of origin, Birthright. A lot of players see his personal bow in Royal Blood, invest a lot of experience in him, and find success using him. Most Birthright lists I've seen place him in the top half of first generation units. Some lists even put him as high as top 3 in the game. As one of the more experienced Birthright players out there, I have to disagree. So today, we'll be going over everything about Takumi and how useful he is over the course of the game. Joining me for this video is Bluegh, who shares my opinion that Takumi is one of the 10 worst first generation units in Birthright. So let's get started. So yeah, today we will be starting with Takumi, one of the most interesting units in Birthright. I know a lot of casual players love using Takumi just because the Fujin Yumi looks so good, but let's get into him. So he joins in Chapter 10, the Ninja Village map. He is recruited as a level 11 archer, which is nice because he starts with skill +2 and quick draw and C rank bows.
I would say that on his joining chapter, he actually has a lot of good things going for him. He, first of all, has C rank bows. He has really good accuracy. He'll be one of your more skillful units, which is very good for the map he joins on because he joins in the Ninja Village map, which has a lot of fast ninjas and a lot of forest tiles, which can be pretty annoying for a lot of your cast at that point in the early game. So he definitely gets a very strong start, I would say.
Yeah, that map is particularly good for the Fujin Yumi's ability to not get slowed by terrain effects. It also lets him do things like walk on water on Mozu's map or Kamila's map, and weird stuff like that. Desert Traversal is also really good for him, although the only desert chapter in Birthrights that you get him for is Shiro's Paralogue, I believe, right?
Yeah, because Chapter 8 is before he joins, unfortunately.
That is useful for waste maps, like I know Hisame's Paralogue, and does Rajat's Paralogue have waste on it?
It has I forget what they're called, but it has like those dark spots that are in similar to like Leo's map.
Yeah.
Notably, he can also walk on the ice freely in Chapter 12.
Ooh.
If you're playing that map straight up.
Yeah.
He's the only unit that can do that other than Flyers or Kaden.
Yeah.
Because it's not like desert maps where mages can walk on it for some reason, even though I think it should work like that.
Yeah. So, in the occasional instances where you don't have a flyer spare and you need to get your unit to a spot that it can't, the Fujin Yumi can be used for that. It lets him do this even if he goes into a class like Mechanist, which is very much appreciated. Although, I forget, is he still able to walk on water with Mechanist?
I believe he is. I believe as long as the Fujin Yumi's in his inventory, he's just completely immune to any movement cut that terrain could give him.
Nice. Okay.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Although, the unfortunate thing is, as you get to the late game maps of Birthrights, Chapter 22 and onwards, you're not really influenced by terrain very much. I think most tiles are just plain, which means units with like elbow room are going to love their lives, but Takumi's Fujin Yumi ability is not going to be very useful outside of paralogs.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate how like Takumi, I feel like he has a very, very strong start to a lot of what Birthright has to offer, but then Birthright starts to like once you start getting to Nor in the story is when he starts to fall off a little bit. I would say honestly it probably starts at Chapter 19.
Yeah. Although if you look at his first 3 or so chapters, Ninja Village, the boat map with all the flyers that you can just use his Fujin Yumi on, and the Opera House map, which has a lot of one-tile wide gaps that you can use your bow on. He actually has a few chapters where he's very, very useful.
I would say that he's honestly one of your better units in the string of like chapters 10 to 14.
Yeah.
He has like weapon triangle advantage up the wazoo basically every map up until then.
Yep.
He's by far the best outlaw killer, which there are a lot of them in that like stream, because he's not weak to bows like Reina is or any other like Kenshi Knight would be. There is Saizo and Kaze who also have 1-2 range, and Kagero, but they have weapon triangle disadvantage until chapter 14 where you get the level 2 shops, so he's just hands down really your best option for that.
Yeah, and he's even still a bit useful in Wolfskin Peak, which has all of the terrain that really hates you.
Yeah, he has a lot of like really good things going for him, and especially because he has like super high skill, and the fact that he starts in archer and can go into sniper, he will never really have any bad accuracy issues, unless he's like fighting any bow breaker units, which there's like 3 or something.
Yeah. I can name Camilla, that one berserker in chapter 27, and maybe chapter 23 Camilla? I forget. But yeah, those are the
also Iago.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Also, like, because of how accurate Takumi is, he isn't really affected by the low hit of the Fujin Yumi, at least low hit in comparison to other weapons.
Yeah.
And he can provide very strong dual strikes with it, which is very useful.
Yeah. The one big thing that's holding Takumi back when it comes to player phasing is his speed. It's not great. He has a base of 11. His growth is fine. It's at 55 as an archer, but he does need support if he wants to be able to double on player phase. He doesn't always need to double on player phase because his big might bow does help with that. But if he's not in position to get a dual strike, or you don't have other units in position in time, then he can't always reliably, consistently one-shot enemies without help with speed. Which speed is probably the easiest stat to patch up in Birthright, because you have a bunch of samurai pair-ups, you have Sky Knights, you have archers that you can just plop onto him and help him with his speed alongside the tonics that you can use and meals. But if you're not investing in Takumi, he will have a little bit of trouble just being that one delete button that you use once per turn.
Mm-hmm. Especially when he gets to the into the later parts of the game where he starts having more weapon triangle disadvantage, and you start having more like bulk and stuff.
Yeah. So Takumi is probably one of your better player phase units that you have during that stretch of time. You really do not want him to be enemy phasing too much because, of course, he's bill locked, and his defenses are really not that great. 10 defense, 4 resistance, compared to a unit like Renka or Oboro or even Hinata or Korin, is not great. Like, he's probably fine against the ninjas in chapter 10 and the outlaws, but if you put him up against, like, in range of several Wyvern Lords in the boat map, he might die if he's not paired up.
Yeah, he does struggle a bit on enemy phase, which is unfortunate. He can take like 1, maybe 2 hits depending on if he's like fighting more physical based or magical based units. Like in chapter 11, for example, he can enemy phase like 1 Malignite, and then he has to get healed back to full HP.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if he takes another attack, he will probably die.
Yeah. So, my question to you right now is, do you think Takumi is worth using throughout the entire game, or is there a point at which you'd recommend that people stop using him?
If you're going to go the standard route with keeping him in like archer or sniper or even Kenshi Knight, I would say that you can probably get away with not using him anymore after, honestly, chapter 14, because by then Ryoma kind of just takes all of what Takumi can do and then does it better.
Yeah. Even without a
however,
partner.
there are... Yeah, that's true. I think there are ways to make Takumi very good, and there's definitely a lot of things that he can do to increase his longevity for the rest of the game. But I do think he will have a harder time than a good chunk of other units.
Yeah, I agree. when it comes to just taking on the 6 enemy reinforcements that come at you in one big cluster that you get in like chapter 25, is it? Takumi is probably not the unit that you would want to be using if he's bow locked or bow and lance locked as a Kenshi Knight.
Yeah.
So Takumi does have a pretty interesting personal skill. It's competitive. If supported by a same or higher level unit, grants crit plus 10, plus 3 damage dealt, and minus 1 damage taken. It looks pretty interesting, but I don't think it's very good. The biggest drawback of it is that it's not going to be active very often, because you need to be partnered with a same or higher leveled unit, and Takumi often wants speed support, and the person that you're going to be using as a stat backpack for Takumi probably isn't going to be a very high level, just because they're spending most of their time in the back of a unit that needs to be used on most turns if he wants to stay with the level curve. So if you're using Takumi with a pair partner that's dedicated to him, that you want to marry him, that personal skill is probably going to be pretty useless, although you have more experience using him with attack stance only. So what do you think of the personal skill there?
So in attack stance, I do think that his personal skill is a lot better than it is in like normal play. With a pair up partner, it's just completely dead in the water. Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
But in attack stance, the biggest thing for competitive is that the dual strikes of your unit that's like backing up Takumi will probably, like, their attack is gonna get cut in half.
Yeah. So
that extra 3 damage dealt is probably actually going to matter a lot more unless you're dual striking with a unit like Ryoma.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if it works if he's the dual striker. Do you know? I think it does, right?
I don't think it does, because I think it says if supported by, which means
okay.
I think he would need to be in the lead position.
Its only real like amazing use is for like having stronger dual strikes on like particularly bulky enemies. It's really good if you're trying to like feed units or like give others some like weapon rank training.
Yeah.
But other than that, the use of the skill isn't too applicable.
Yeah. And even when it does get used, plus 3 damage dealt, Takumi isn't really a unit that's craving a lot of extra damage just because he already has the big Might Fujin Yumi and a pretty solid strength and quick draw from the archer class. So when you get later into the game where an extra 3 damage is not that much, competitive doesn't really seem particularly relevant, and the minus 1 damage taken does really help if you want to Takumi to Juggernaut or something.
I think the biggest thing with it is that the numbers that it affects aren't even that high. Even the crit bonus, if you're trying to like crit stack, there's other ways to get it with, like, let's say his natural class access, he could go into Butler and then use the Barb Shuriken or something like crazy like that.
True.
For the damage dealt and damage taken, I mean, he has a lot of damage stacking in his natural class set already. He also has access to tonics and meals and pair up, and if you want to use capturables or if you have like a fighter Quarren, then he has access to rally strength.
Yeah.
So there's just like, I would say the only times where it's really applicable is like chapter 14 and then maybe some like chapters following after that. Maybe against Xander if you are in a pinch, but Xander in chapter 12.
Oh yeah. I wonder what his hit rates would be against Xander. Xander does have pretty high Xander has pretty high luck, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Xander has like pretty good dodge, I would think, but he is slow, so I think it's not
okay. Yeah, that makes
too
sense.
bad. I almost want to go check.
Yeah. I have the map pulled up here. Xander has 15 speed compared to his Takumi's 11 base speed. It's gonna be a little difficult to get him to double Xander.
Yeah, he would need some significant support with that.
I don't think even if you early promote Tsubaki, you're getting to rally speed that early.
Yeah, you would need to like do a paralog chain.
Yeah.
Or like buy the skill if you're really crazy.
True. So yeah, you mentioned his natural class set. What do you think of the combination of Archer Spear Fighter? I know that Seal Defense on an Archer can make for a decent utility unit in any game that isn't Birthright, but we are playing Birthright, an enemy phase game, first and foremost, where you are probably going to be killing any enemy that you're attacking on player phase. I don't think that Seal Defense, Seal Speed on an Archer or a Ninja is particularly useful if you're using Takumi as a primarily player phase unit.
So I would say the only thing he really has the gain from Spear Fighter is maybe Lance Fair if you want to go into like Kenshi Knight, or I guess Quixotic should be. It's always useful. Yeah, Quixotic is good. Issue is both of those skills are level 15 skills.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a while before Takumi even has access to them. And while Rend Heaven is funny and can help some units actually score kills, I don't think it actually helps that much with Takumi because, again, he already has really good damage output.
Yeah.
It's not really something he's dying for.
It can kind of help if you want to like stack effective crit, because that's just another form of critting that's independent of the crit chance, but his skill is pretty good, so he's going to proc it pretty often, but I don't think it's worth using a Heart Seal to get into Spear Fighter and leveling up with E rank lances for.
Yeah, that's kind of the big issue that he has, is that you need to use a Heart Seal in like to even get into the class, which depending on when you're trying to Heart Seal could prove to be troublesome.
Yeah.
Because Birthright Heart Seals are pretty scarce.
Yeah.
And even then he still has to go through E rank, and he won't even be able to proc like Rend Heaven or anything if you're trying to go for that. The only real use he would have then would be like 1-2 range with Seal Defense.
And Seal Defense is useful if you're on a unit that is already going to be getting that through their natural class progression. I like using Hayato for Seal Res and Obero for Seal Defense as utility units to help feed kills to any training projects that I want to use, but I don't think it's worth going into Spear Fighter just to get a skill like Seal Defense.
Yeah, even for swap, like you're already going to get that on Obero anyways.
Yeah. And
you usually don't really need a swap or shove unit more than one of them.
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting Obero married, she can even pass that down to her kid.
Yeah.
So that's already 2 swap units, which is more than you should ever need.
Yeah. So what do you think of his friendship class sets? He has 2 of them. He gets Troubadour from Jacob and Samurai from either Ryoma or Hinata. And his only fast support that he has for his friendship classes is Ryoma, which joins 3 chapters or 4 chapters after him, so your mileage may vary.
So Troubadour may look kind of memey, but honestly, I don't really hate it for him.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, it gets him access to shurikens, which in Birthright, shurikens boost your speed.
Yes.
Well, in all games, shurikens boost your speed, but you get more access to shurikens, which is very good. It also fixes his resistance, so he could realistically enemy phase some magical units.
Yeah.
In his base class, he really can't do that too well. So if you want Takumi to do that, you definitely can. Live to Serve is just free healing. That's just never a bad skill. Any unit that is like on their way to get Live to Serve really appreciates it, and then
Oh yeah.
I feel like Takumi would be no different. And then late game you get Tonebreaker, which could be really, really good for maps like Chapter 25.
Yes, yeah. Birthright does have a surprising number of mixed clusters of enemies with physical and magic units, so having support on the magical side for a unit with res this lacking does really help. Although you're probably not going to get it that early unless you paralog chain during late game, which I do recommend doing. Even if you promote Takumi fairly early, he's probably not going to be getting the most EXP throughout the course of Birthright's late game.
As for Samurai, I do think I'm pretty sure it's faster to get it through Ryoma still, or it might be like the exact same. I forget how. No, actually, Hinata would get it first. But if you want an easy support, I would say that your best course of action is getting Samurai through Ryoma.
Yeah.
Of the skills he gets from them, I would say the only really good ones are Vantage, because that's like never terrible.
Yeah. Vantage, I have a pretty high opinion of Vantage. It's probably one of the best bulk boosting skills that you can get in Birthrights, because you don't get things like defense +2 or natural cover or rally defense or resistance, unless you either use Scarlet or Jacob or capture a generic Wyvern Lord or something. So Vantage being able to, if you 2-round an enemy, which in Birthright's late game you're probably going to be doing a fair amount of, not having to deal with the damage on your second turn of 2-rounding that enemy is really nice.
Yeah, so Vantage is probably like the best thing you can get from here, because like, especially with Takumi, let's say you're doing Takumi in attack stance and he can activate Vantage, and just his damage output is usually good enough to where his dual strike partner can clean up for him and he'll never really be in any danger. You can also do things like the funny Vantage Astra.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really good for guard stance, but it's not something you ever truly want to rely on.
He does have a pretty good skill stat, but I still wouldn't want to use...
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to rely on Astra for anything in this game.
0.5 modifier is scary to rely on.
Yeah.
There is Life and Death and Swordfare, which are like really good damage stack skills, but honestly,
on Takumi, I don't think I want to use those on Takumi.
Yeah.
Like, I guess you could do
first of all,
Life and Death Sniper on him with Fujin Yumi and have him be a player phase only unit, but
it would be funny, but he already struggles on enemy phase as it is.
Yeah.
So getting the extra 10 damage dealt to him is not ideal. As for Seal Strength and Swordfare and Duelist Blow, they'll likely really never come into play unless you're doing some weird off-meta builds.
yeah.
But even then, I don't even think they'll be too useful.
I mean, Duelist Blow can just be a nice thing for getting a little bit of extra avoid when player phasing tome units. If he ends up in a bow class, which you probably want him in. Although because if you're going into Samurai, you're pretty much locking off your access to Troubadour through Jacob. You'd have to marry for a dagger class. So I do think Duelist Blow is a little useful, especially because he's primarily a player phase unit if he's using bows, but yeah.
One thing you can do is you can pair going into Master of Arms with Spearfighter, and then you can get the triple seal Takumi.
True.
Isn't very practical, but it is very funny.
Yeah. I guess if you really, really, really want to raise a life and death Orochi, I guess having seal defense, seal speed, and seal strength on one unit might have some utility. Although, you could probably still do it better with Obro.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot easier for other units to get Omni Seals. Aside from that, I guess the only other like real potential that he could have with this set of classes is he could do a really good job at being an aura bot. He could get Inspiration and Gentium. Ideally, he isn't in Troubadour for long enough to get Inspiration, but he could do it.
I guess he could. His magic stats and growth of 0 make that particularly difficult, though. I guess if you're using Seal Resistance Hayato or Rajat or Rinka, something can happen if you, like, give him a Fire or Rat Spirit +3, and he can maybe deal, like, 3 damage to an enemy and get to that level 15 threshold, but, yeah. I forget, what does Amaterasu do?
That heals allies. I forget by how much. I think it's by 15% of all allies in 2 spaces or less.
20% of allies in 2 spaces, yeah. Okay. So, if you want to stack auras, if you really want to meme it that way, that is another thing you could get him.
Also, I wouldn't entirely discredit air superiority. It's less good on Takumi than it is on other units. Yeah. But it is definitely it's never a bad option.
Although, what maps are you really going to be fighting a lot of flyers on in late game Birthright, though?
Chapter 24, notably.
Oh yeah, the Hans map, right, yeah.
Yeah, Hans. Other than that, I don't actually... Not a lot. I guess chapter 27.
And the Camilla map, 23, yeah.
Yeah.
Extra Void is not something to complain about.
It might even negate Bowbreaker for Camilla.
Oh yeah, that's true. Alright. So, what do you think about his marriage classes? Is there any class in particular that stands out to you? Of course, you can already get into Samurai and Troubadour through Jacob and the Samurais, but his marriage classes are Azura for Sky Knights, Apothecary for Mozu thanks to parallel classes, Diviner from Orochi, Odi Savage from Rinka, and Ninja from either Kagero or Satuna.
Yeah, so I think especially in the case of Mozu, I think going Mechanist from Marriage is probably, I would argue, his best class.
Yes, I agree. Mechanist is...
He gets 1/2 range, he gets 1 extra movement than normal, he still keeps bows. Also, if he marries Mozu, he can get Potent Potion and Quick Salve, which are very underrated skills, but they are very strong. They basically give you an extra stat for whenever you use tonics. Depending on if you're doing luck or HP, you get even more from that.
And he gets to keep his bow access.
Yeah. And there's also more options for damage stacking for both going in Master Ninja and Mechanist. In Master Ninja, he can get Shuriken Fair eventually and then go back to Mechanist. And if you really want, you can get a Shuriken Fair, Bow Fair, Mechanist, which is insane.
Yeah.
In Merchant, he can get Profiteer, which is always nice because just extra gold.
His luck stat is actually not that bad, although you'd also stay in a 1 range / 2 range locked class to stay for 5 levels to get to that point. Not ideal.
Mm-hmm. There's also Spendthrift, which is just player phase life and death, but also better life and death.
Oh yeah, -10 damage received on final boss Garen does help.
Aside from Ninja Mechanist and Apothecary Mechanist, I would say his only other really great option is Rinka.
Odi Chieftain is just a generally good class for any unit that likes extra physical defense, and Takumi is one of them.
He can also much like Merchant, he would get he can get Salvage Blow from Blacksmith,
Yes.
which would be cool for funny forges.
And if you want a crit
And,
stack, Death Blow from Oni
yeah.
Chieftain.
You can go. You can get Death Blow. You can go back to Sniper and then use the Fujin Yumi, and you'll have like a billion crit.
Oh yeah.
His marriages with Hana and Felicia and I guess Obero are all completely redundant.
Yeah.
And I would advise not ever pursuing them.
I mean, if you want to have
unless you
both
wanna
Troubadour
do-
and Samurai on the same Takumi, it's technically not useless, but you have better options most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Orochi is also pretty useless because Takumi doesn't ever really want to be in a magical class, and he already has Beisara anyways from his Heart Seal.
Yeah.
The same kind of goes for Azura, but there is actually a pretty decent reason why you would want to go into Sky Knight.
For Darting Blow, right?
For Darting Blow.
You just
Because
need one
Takumi
level,
has
and you can
yeah.
immediately not have to care about having a para partner for your player phase bow unit.
It's also nice because he can just promote into Kenshi Knight from Archer, so marrying Azura won't even like cost a Heart Seal or
Yeah.
a Partner Seal, rather. And obviously Corrin is always the best option for everyone.
Yeah. I don't think any unit would not like to have supportive plus the class of their choice as their para partner.
Yeah.
So when it comes to choosing a marriage partner, who do you think is the best one? Mozu technically has the highest ceiling just because Apothecary is better than Ninja if you want to stack Potent Potion and Quick Salve, and you don't really care about Shuriken Fair since it's so late. But using Mozu as Takumi's para partner is just such a terrible time because she does not give speed or attack or defense. As a villager, she has plus luck and skill, right?
Yeah, it's a little rough with Mozu, especially because the classes that Mozu has innately aren't very good for Takumi.
Yeah.
Because Takumi just already has the stats that she gives.
Yeah.
I would say that his best parrot partners are probably Setsuna, and if you want to go this route, you can go with Rinka.
Yeah.
Rinka helps his survivability a lot on enemy phase if you really care about that. It can let you be a lot less careful about positioning, which can be useful sometimes. It also gives Takumi a lot more strength, which I guess in some situations could be good.
And in attack stance, Takumi can just stand behind Rinka and use his bow, which is always nice.
Yeah, that's true. It's very nice because Rinka can just tank all the hits, and then Takumi can finish them off with his very high damage.
Yeah.
I say Setsuna specifically instead of Kagero because I believe that Setsuna gives more speed
Yes.
than Kagero does in Ninja.
Yeah. Although, do you really want to be
and-
spending a Heart Seal to get Setsuna
Yeah,
into Ninja?
that's the big thing. It's kind of a question of does Kagero want to marry Takumi? And sometimes the answer is yes if you're not doing anything too crazy with Kagero, but
a
there
fair
are
amount of
builds
units
that
do
you can go
want
with her.
ninja access.
Yeah.
And
That's also a big thing. Setsuna can only give Takumi ninja.
Yeah.
She gives everyone else
Archer.
archer. And Kagero gives everyone ninja.
Yeah.
No matter who she marries, except for like Kaze and Saizo, but though they already have it. So generally speaking, Setsuna is probably the better option for who gives him ninja.
Yeah.
Just because of the superior speed and the more, I feel like it frees up more options.
Yeah. Although having to continue to deploy Setsuna past chapter 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and possibly more, depending on how many paralogs you have saved up. Not always the most ideal option, because I usually like to get rid of Setsuna from my deployment as soon as humanly possible, and having Takumi pair up with Setsuna and having 1 unit death per turn from those 2 units is usually not ideal.
Yeah, the one thing that I guess Setsuna as a Parabot does have going for her is that Birthright late game does have a lot of deployment slots, so it does free up a lot of slots that you can use as like strictly Parabots, because a lot of times when I'm playing Birthright, towards the end game, I will have so many deployment slots that I'm just gonna have like, it's gonna let me bring more units than I'm actually using.
Yeah.
So she isn't the worst option.
Yeah. Although there is that big stretch of chapters like the Leo chapter, the Fort Dragonfall, the Rainbow Sage, that are pretty much just to give you free experience and support points. So if you've neglected Takumi's marriage options, deploying him and his future wife, who could be Setsuna, during those 3 chapters is probably a good idea if you want to continue using him long term. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Reina exists. Reina has very good stats. Reina joins 1 chapter after Takumi and has 28 HP, 17 strength, 5 magic, 14 skill, 20 speed, which is 9 higher than Takumi's base, 14 luck, 10 defense, and 13 resistance. So Takumi doesn't compare particularly favorably. The one big thing that he does have is his Fujin Yumi, which is 14 might compared to the probably brass or iron Yumis that Reina would be using that have a lot lower might. But Reina's ability to be self-sufficient in the chapters after her join time is pretty impressive compared to how much support Takumi needs in order to consistently win rounds.
The big thing that Reina has over Takumi is that she has self-healing. She has way better survivability on both phases, really.
Yeah.
She has Darting Blow innately.
Yep.
On top of her superior speed, so she really is never going to have an issue doubling like Takumi is. The one thing that I would say, this is kind of a huge thing for a while, that Takumi has over Reina is the fact that Takumi is not a Kenshi Knight. So in chapter 12 and 13 especially.
Oh yeah.
There are a lot of outlaws. Almost everywhere you go, there's at least one outlaw there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's a bad idea to leave Reina in enemy range like at all, because an outlaw can usually either dual strike on Reina or just straight up attack Reina, and that will not be very good for her.
Yeah.
And Takumi does not have that issue. However, around chapter, I would say 14 is when he starts to fall off a little bit. That's when you get access to a lot better weapons. That's when you get access to things like the Beast Killer that Benny drops.
Yeah. And Reina also has the dual Naginata for killing outlaws, like the ones in chapter 14.
Yeah, that's true. So it becomes a lot harder for Takumi to outpace Reina.
Yeah.
I would say in chapter 11, I would argue that they're kind of comparably good. They're like very similar in how they perform. I would say in the string of chapter 11 to chapter 13, it's a good idea to just deploy both of them. It's a great idea in chapter 11 to still bring Takumi anyways, because Reina can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah.
Also, Reina can actually help Takumi a little bit too, because she can set up competitive for him. Not that it'll matter too much.
Although if you're deploying, or if you're using both of the units just to get one kill on player phase, then having Reina and Takumi both occupied is probably not ideal. But technically that is something that can be done, yeah.
Another big thing with Reina is that I believe in her innate class set, she also gets, she
has natural
already
access to
has
Mechanist.
Master Ninja.
Yeah.
So she can just already go in Mechanist once Kinshi Knight stops being like really good in Birthright, which isn't, it's not very good for a terribly long time. Reina can just switch into Mechanist and cook there instead.
She can pretty much just coast off her bases for a long time, and she does have Camilla leveling. She has an internal promotion level of 10, I believe, right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
So she is probably going to continue leveling up a lot faster than units like Scarlet, which will allow her to at least keep up with them while still having the 1-2 range in her natural class set. I know one of the LTCs has used Reina to pretty great effects until like pretty late in the game. I forget which one.
Yeah. Notably, also, you can deploy Reina in Chapter 16. You're not able to do that
true. Yeah.
with Takumi.
Yeah.
Another great thing about Reina is that she actually also gets Besara. I'm just seeing that.
Yeah.
She starts with really good weapon ranks too. I believe, let me double check here. Yeah, D in bows and C in lances. Yeah. So she doesn't actually have to try very hard to get access to good weapons. Like right off the bat, she can immediately like take Hinoka's Guard Naginata.
Yeah.
And just eat hits. Whereas Takumi is just kind of bow locked for a while until he reclasses, which isn't ideal.
8 movement flyer with stats this good in a game that lets you succeed while pushing far ahead just because enemies are not super great stat-wise is really nice, yeah. Even after she gets outclassed, she's probably going to still be able to pull off a utility role just because being an 8 movement flyer in paralogs in Birthright is pretty useful. I cannot really say the same about Takumi just because you'd still have to be investing at least one Master Seal to get him into Kinshi Knights, and then he'll still have worse offenses than Reina with the reduction in strength that you get from the promotion from Archer to Kinshi Knights.
Yeah, it's pretty tragic. I feel like the only thing that really keeps Takumi like staying afloat in comparison to Reina's damage output is the fact that he has a Fujin Yumi.
Yeah.
Take that away and he struggles a bit.
And using 2 deployment spots to get Takumi to double to replicate what Reina already does is quite a big ask. So
also in Kinshi Knight he has E rank and low lances.
That's true. So if you're asking me if I'm going to be deploying Takumi or Reina in a given map, if given the option, there's a good chance I'm going to say Reina if I can't choose both, because there's a lot of things you want to do with raising supports in Birthright. You can't deploy every unit that you want to, right? I think Reina, just for her role compression, is very nice to have, especially when you get to later in Birthright's mid-game. And having that competition just makes continuing to use Takumi more difficult to justify the later into the game that you get. But let's say you really do want to use Takumi, and you want to invest in him, and you want to make him one of your carries. If you want to do that, then as you said before, the best way to do that is to make him into a Mechanist through Ninja Marriage, which you'll probably do through either Kagura or Setsuna. And if you do that, he will have some stats. He has, after a level 17 promotion from Archer and reclassing into Mechanist immediately, he will have averages of 34 HP, 21 strength, 0 magic, 28 skill, 19 speed, 19 luck, 17 defense, and 12 resistance. Now, people like you and me can look at those stats and have a pretty good idea of what they mean. But to most people, those stats don't really mean anything, so we'll need to compare them to another unit that, let's say, is pretty solid. So if you want to talk about physical units that you want to use as a carry in Birthright, the most solid unit that anyone can pick up and use is probably going to be a Master Ninja Shiso. I think most people agree that Shiso is pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
He's probably the lowest effort unit besides Ryuma that you can just pick up, use without much thought, get him to high level, and have him be one of your carries throughout late game Birthrights. So let's look at how Takumi compares with Shiso. So I've done some calculations to convert these stats, his raw HP, strength, and magic stats, into something that's more applicable to actual combat. I've calculated his attack speed, hit, avoid, crit, dodge, defense, and resistance stats effectively after taking into account his skills. And I've notably included the benefits of his competitive skill in these calculations. We've mentioned before that it's very difficult to make competitive actually relevant because he's often not going to have a partner that is going to be a higher level than him, but giving him all the advantages he can get. We can get him using a Shuriken in Mechanist for enemy phase. He has pretty okay stats. Compared to Shiso, he has 3 less attack speed, which is pretty notable. He has 5 less hit due to being in Mechanist instead of the Master Ninja class, which just gives you an innate plus 5 hits. He has 11 less avoid, 5 less dodge, 1 less defense, and 3 less resistance on average, with 2 more HP. This is with competitive in mind, so if you think he's not going to be activating competitive, which I think he won't, you would remove 3 attack, 1 defense, and 1 resistance. So how do you think Takumi really compares to Shiso when it comes to being one of your late game carries?
I think that Takumi does generally have a better skill set. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
Skill +2 and quick draw in particular on player phase is just really good for him, and Shiso just unfortunately doesn't get that unless he just reclasses out of it, but then he won't be a Master Ninja anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing here is that while comparable to what Shiso has, Takumi's enemy phase survivability is still notably worse.
Yeah.
Even though he does have 2 more HP, he still has worse defense, even with competitive. Like if you take away competitive, he has 2 less effective defense.
Yes.
Than Shiso, which just like that extra defense that Shiso has already makes up for the HP lost. And then he has 3 more res, which is a lot.
Yeah. And
actually 4 more res without competitive.
Yeah. And when you're putting him up against the waves of 6 enemies, that's maps like the Iago map at the end of Birthrights can send at you at once, those reduced defenses are a pretty significant deal, because they're being multiplied by up to 6 per turn.
One thing that is also very notable is that Shiso starts with a Shuriken rank, and Takumi does not. Takumi is starting at E rank, which is not a place that really any unit likes being in. And then Shiso just immediately is like cooking. He's really good.
Shiso
with
Shiso at base.
like giving him a breath shuriken is generous because he can be using like an iron shuriken and do even more damage, which is really good.
Shiso at base can already take advantage of the Barb Shuriken if you want to do the funny crit build with him, while Takumi has to stay in combat for a long time in order to even get the C rank needed to use the Warp Shuriken to do the funny crit build.
Yeah, and I think also another thing is one thing that Takumi has over Shiso is the fact that he doesn't have pyrotechnics.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is Shiso's like biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Is the fact that he can't take off pyrotechnics. So if he fails to kill any unit and he's at below half health, he's just going to have to take that damage, and Takumi just never really has to worry about that. That's like the one thing that he really that's like the main appeal that Takumi would have over Shiso.
Yeah.
I would say because despite Shiso having a lot better survivability generally, it still is very easy to activate it by accident when you don't want it to.
Yeah. Technically one of the benefits that Takumi can have is his access to other classes outside of just going directly into Ninja. He does have access to his friendship and base classes to get extra skills that he otherwise wouldn't have. He could technically go into Troubadour to get Res +2 to slightly patch up that stat, although that also costs an extra Heart Seal and an extra 2,000 gold, and requiring you to get friendship with Jacob, so that's a bit difficult to ask for when it comes to a player phase focused unit.
Yeah, especially if you have a male Korin, so you have to wait until chapter 16 to even be able to start building Jacob friendship, which is not ideal.
Yeah. And his other friendship option, which is the Samurai, will give him Vantage, but also Shiso also has Samurai in his natural class set. So in the amount of effort that you'd give to Takumi in order to get him into, first get him the supports with a Samurai to get to A+, to even get the Samurai class, and the extra 2,000 gold and limited friendship seal access in order to get into that class, Shiso can just take 2 Heart Seals and get into Samurai, get Vantage, and get back into Ninja immediately, without having to raise supports with 2 different people.
Yeah, and another thing that you might be wondering is that, like, oh, well, if Shiso wants Vantage, he's gonna have to use a Heart Seal. He actually doesn't, because he has a fast support with both Kaze and Ryoma.
That's true, yeah.
Which also give him Samurai, so he can just use a friendship seal.
Yeah.
He can literally just have like a Kaze backpack.
Yeah.
Which would only take like 5 maps to build their A support or something like that.
And Shiso really does like the extra speed and movement that a ninja pair up gives him.
So, yeah, Shiso is generally just like the better Vantage build. That said, I wouldn't completely discredit Takumi.
Yeah,
he still does have the Fusion Yumi. He
Yeah.
still does have better mobility overall, which is kind of his like big appeal.
Although the big downside of using Fujin Yumi as a mechanist while in Birthright's late game is that you would need another unit by him in order to trade him away from the Fujin Yumi back to a Shuriken in order to enemy phase, unless you're doing things outside of enemy range, in which case having a unit with the stats to Juggernaut is probably not going to be best spent in that role in the first place.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, Kaden is useful. Why would you go out of your way to get a mechanist Takumi?
That's true, yeah.
Alright, any final thoughts on Takumi? Anything else you think I missed?
I would say that he has a lot of things that are really good going for him. I think it's just unfortunate that he's a Birthright unit.
Yeah.
If he was a Conquest unit, I think he might be like maybe even top 5.
Top 5 is a lot. Like, Silas is pretty good.
That's true, yeah. Maybe not top 5, but he would be up there for sure. And I would also say that if you're playing Rev, he does have better options.
Oh, yes.
Than what we've discussed here today. But for Birthright specifically, I think that we've generally covered at least everything that I think about him.
Yeah. Takumi is certainly a usable unit, although he is often not going to be your best choice once you get past the chapters shortly after he joins. Alright. Make sure you guys subscribe to Bluegh's channel for more cool Fates clears, Birthright, Conquest, and Revelation. Thanks for being on this call. Yeah. I think we've been talking for like an hour. Wow.
Ooh, that's a lot of Takumi.
Yeah. If the rest of my talks go this long, then I sure will have quite a series. This is why I wanted to do individual units instead of like making one big 50-hour-long tier list video.
No, yeah, especially if you plan on doing all the like Gen 2 characters,
Yeah.
because that would be rough.
Yeah. Alright, thanks for being on the call, and we will maybe do this again some other time.
It was fun.
Yep.